Popcorn Planet. I'm Andy Signore. I'm so excited to go recap week one with lawyer Andrea Burkhart. Welcome back to the show, Andrea. How you doing?
Doing great, Andy. Thanks so much for having me back.
This was a wild week. So much coming out, and there's so much to get through. We have you for a short window, but I'm so excited to break it down and go through. But we had breaking news today. Today, people, I guess, don't realize, and maybe you can help explain. Yes, they're televising it. The trial is Monday through Thursday. However, Friday is still a working day for the lawyers and the judge, correct?
Yes.
So what are they doing? What's happening today on Friday, just for people who aren't fully understanding?
Well, Friday is the regular civil motions docket day in the Fairfax County, Virginia court. So basically all of their civil cases that have motions on a certain schedule, those get heard on Fridays. So they're dealing with all of their other workload today.
Got it. Now, is the Johnny's team, are there motions that they're all trying to sort out today potentially as well, or no?
Well, it looks like that may be the case. We're not seeing a whole lot at this point getting uploaded regularly onto the Fairfax County website. So to the extent that that type of thing is happening, it does appear that they are just raising these issues orally in the court.
Okay, got it. Well, because today we did get some interesting news here. Update. Eve Barlow. Some of us call her Eve Fartlow. I'm sorry, I'll do it. I told her, you can call me Pignor. I'll call you Fartlow or even. But Eve Fartlow has been permanently banned from attending the U.S. trial. Miss Heard was passing her multiple notes. She was using her phone and laptop. We seemingly have caught her doxing and releasing names of Depp fans that were in the crowd. I don't know where else they got these sources from, because who else would be keeping old 6-year-old threats against Amber from minors on the internet? But yes, a motion was finally passed. And so can you explain this? This means she's not allowed to show up at any more trial dates, correct?
Yes, for the pendency of the trial means for the rest of the time that this is going on, she's not going to be allowed back into the courtroom.
I mean, this is a pretty big deal, no? I mean, like, is this a good look for her friends to be getting banned from the courtroom?
Well, you'd have to ask her about her strategy on that one.
It's so strange to me why they'd want to risk anything of this happening. Yeah, I mean, but is this typical? Like, could this be oh, it's fine? Like, why do you think the judge granted this motion? Why do you think Johnny's team filed it?
Well, obviously there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to yet. And so I expect that a lot more of the details about this are going to be coming to light as things continue. But the bottom line is that Judge Azcarate has made it very clear for both sides that she is not going to tolerate any contempt of her court orders, that her orders are the law in her courtroom. And so, we have some indications that Eve was not respecting the court's order concerning not using your devices in the courtroom, that she was, basically live tweeting and otherwise engaging in these types of activities that are flatly not allowed by Judge Azcarate's order. And so, yeah, that's what happens. If you're going to disrespect a court order, you're going to get burned.
I love it, because I feels like they're doing some. I mean, I know you got to play it safe, and you're a lawyer. You're not there, but it does feel like to all of us, it seems like there's trying to just some sabotage or tricks are happening. Is this seem normal to you, or do you get that vibe as well, that it's like there's a little sneakiness happening right now at this point in the trial?
Oh, there's definitely sneakiness going on. I mean, this is just classic warfare, Andy. This is an attempt to sow chaos because It doesn't have anything to do with the facts of the trial and the evidence that the jury is going to see. So it's just an attempt to divert Johnny Depp's team's attention away from what their focus needs to be at this point, which is presenting their case that Amber Heard lied about the abuse.
Right, and what's interesting is we did a story earlier, but the New York Post seemingly got from a source that it paints Amber in a much lighter picture. But again, the warfare you're speaking of, this could easily be part of that. Amber's team's out there trying to get whatever press they can get right now as distraction, deflections, whatever is part of the game.
Oh, absolutely. And you see in this article itself, it just refers to unnamed sources. It'll be interesting to see in the coming days if that source is able to be identified, since I think a lot of people have reason to suspect that source is Eve Barlow.
Right. Part of the reason why we wonder is that why she got banned out of this. So lots more coming as the game is. It's a bad look. I feel like. Granted, I guess the jury doesn't really see this, and they're not supposed to see this or understand. But from the public perspective, it just reeks of desperation. If you are there to tell the truth, let the evidence speak. Let the case present itself. Right. I don't see Johnny's team trying to do shenanigans right now. There's arguments as to what's going to make it and what's subjected, etc. But that's all part of the process. But to see Amber's team like passing notes and doing all the sneaky stuff that's happening, it seems, is this a good look for her?
Well, Andy, this is like, for me, I'm a boxing fan, and some people are always going to get in the ring and they're going to try to use low blows. That's just all they know how to do to deal with adversity. And yeah, it might get them some advantages, but even if they're able to pull off a win, it's always got an asterisk. So it's a self-defeating strategy from my perspective.
Yeah, and for those joining, yes, Eve has finally been booted from the court. So, but I guess at this point now she can do all this from social media. Nothing's going to stop her at this point from being on social media and causing havoc behind the scenes, I imagine. But just so we're clear, because Christopher Melcher yesterday was saying, technically she's allowed to be on the laptop if she's part of the legal team, correct?
Well, we have seen a lot of speculation about exactly what her role is. And yes, Judge Azcarati's order does carve out an exception for attorneys of record to be able to use their devices for basically work-related communications. And so I kind of suspect that when Judge Azcarati wrote that order, she wasn't contemplating PR management as being one of those attorney work functions that she was intending to make an exception for. So I don't know if Eve was given some leeway to be treated as part of the legal team, but even if she was, it seems pretty evident that what she was apparently doing was not in compliance with the order.
Yeah, well said. Well, I want to go through the week's events, and first of all, I just want to give a proper shout out to Go With The Flow, who is a infographic designer who's been helping and trying to get more of this done. In fact, she's looking for more fact checkers to get it. I met her a while back when she put together this great timeline of when Amber got the money, because it very clearly shows how long Amber had the money in hand. When you see it in the timeline, it's just way more damning. Deadline for final investment of divorce settlement, $7 million February 1st. Sun published this article. Depp launches lawsuit. Heard on real time, $7 million total was donated as split it between the ACLU. Published not bad. Actually, no, this is. See a promise. There's another one where it also proves when the payments were made. I grabbed the wrong one, but she's been doing a lot of great with stuff, and so she's been helping, and she's helped also compile some new timelines for this that I want to go through, as well as we have all the witnesses sort of broken down in nice little chunks. So I want to go through some of this as much as we have time for, but before I even go through it all, what is your overall takeaway of week one as someone watching it, being objective? Who do you think, in the boxer analogy, whatever, who do you think got more points this week? In the eyes of the jury.
Johnny is on track this week. There's no question in my mind about that. The thing that I think is sometimes hard for people who haven't been through a trial of this length is to really get a sense of perspective of how much there is to go and what this process is like. Johnny Depp described going through this as coming out on the right side of the roaring rapids when it's all said and done. And that's such an apt analogy because a trial is never a smooth course. There is always going to be buffeting along the way. And so, yes, we certainly saw that this week, but there's never been any doubt that there will be information coming out at this trial that's not going to be favorable to Johnny Depp. But when you look at a whole, at who was there, what they had to say, and what type of information they were able to present to the jury, overall, in my opinion, the weight of that is clearly in Johnny Depp's favor.
So when we go through the sort of the witnesses that we had Johnny's sister on. What was your takeaway on sort of her defense? She it seems like she was being careful. Obviously, it's his sister. We all assume she doesn't want to be there and say anything that's going to damage the relationship. So there is a bias in that way, of course. It's sort of undeniable. But I thought she was pretty fair in her approach and how she went about things. What was your takeaway on Christi's testimony this week?
Yeah, Christi, I think was important to get some of that background, to get a long-term view of who these people are and how they came to be the people that we know them as today. You know, she had some challenges with her testimony, as a lot of people who are maybe less assertive in their normal presentation may have at trial. It is a confrontational process, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. I think we did see some of that discomfort in Christi. But ultimately, I think she was successful at making the main points that she was really there to make, which is that you couldn't rely on what Amber was telling you, that the people who dealt with Amber had a basically learned habit of placating her just to kind of get her to calm down, get her off their backs. And just to understand a little bit about Johnny's personality and, you know, the childhood experiences that he had that developed that.
Yeah, I mean, she also did added to the fact that she's never makeup, never injuries, someone who was around there a lot. Talked about booking that extra hotel rooms so he could escape, which was a pretty damning thing, and how she witnessed Amber's cruelty when Dior was interested, saying he was fat and old. Why would they want to work with you? And then also alerted us that visited JD a day after their mother passed to pick up the belongings, then went to file the divorce, papers, which was just a travesty. Like, how do you do that 2 days after? Yeah, 5 days after their mother passed away, was sick about Amber filing that. Yeah, I mean, you gotta paint. She painted a picture, I thought, fairly. There was a couple fumbles throughout, moments that it felt like she was not sharing the right evidence or saying she didn't know something that she must have known about the drug use and so on. But actually, I want to talk about that. There's a lot of Johnny does drugs, Johnny drinks, Johnny blacks out. Well, then he must abuse her, right? And it's such a weird stretch that they keep reiterating. But other guests I've had and experts are like, well, yeah, some jurors are that's going to hit them in a way that they're going to think, well, yeah, if he did that, they must. But what is your take on sort of the defense using his drugs and alcohol as sort of the excuse of, well, there's the proof?
Yeah, well, it's a muddying the water strategy. If you can't defend the accusations directly, you just do what you can to stir up enough chaos again that people get distracted from what the evidence is actually showing. And so I think the drugs and alcohol are a big part of that strategy. They think that if they can demonize Johnny and make him look like a bad guy, that the jury will be more inclined to believe, that he would be abusive. It's not an unheard of strategy by any means, but ultimately they have a long way to go to overcome what the actual evidence of abuse is going to be in this case.
Now, the star witness so far, I feel like in most people's eyes, was Mr. Isaac Baruch. I mean, what a witness, right? I mean, it just he had everyone was paying attention. I think we were all wishing he was every witness throughout the whole week as some of the other people stepped up. But did you share the enthusiasm for how good of a credible witness he came across to be?
Oh, I did. Isaac was fantastic. Isaac put on an absolute masterclass on how to deal with a cross-examining attorney. He got an opening and he took it and he slammed that door open. It was a beautiful moment that we all enjoyed, and I am very confident he left a very favorable impression with the jury. Because
I mean, the jurors, right? They're not going to remember everything. They're getting so much information. It's like moments that stick with them, is what I imagine really comes out at the end for some of them, right? There's probably some jurors who are paying every little detail, and the smallest thing can sway them. But a moment like Isaac breaking down on that trial, which happened on the cross, mind you, that moment has to be one of those memorable highlights that's not going to leave their memory, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that had an effect on everyone.
And it was good they got that early. I feel like it really set the tone of where we're at. And so he came in, we watched this, we talked about it, but he saw her, like, he was so clear about, like, I was there, I was inspecting the face. He hit you? Where? Show me. What a strong witness to have. And what I also loved about him was how complimentary he was of Amber. He wasn't angry at her. He wasn't there to knock her. He was very fair about it and very upfront, but clearly didn't believe her and didn't believe her for reasons that I felt like he explained well. Did you get that vibe as well?
Oh, absolutely. And Andy, that's been a big theme, a big obvious difference between the approaches that the different sides are taking in this case. In their opening statements, Camille Vasquez made a very specific point to refer to Amber Heard as troubled. They are not trying to demonize her. They're not trying to villainize her. They are encouraging the jury to approach her with compassion, but hold her accountable for what she's done. Obviously, from Amber Heard's team, we saw the monster reemerge, and we're seeing that in their strategy as well. That it's villainized, it's demonized, and we're just going to see what the jury's taste is, I think, for those different approaches.
Yeah, you're super spot on, because they're the ones labeling Johnny the alcoholic monster, all these negative things. If he's the abuser, the monster, but Johnny's not playing it back, they're letting the evidence and the witness be like, wow, wait, really? You did that to him? How? And without him being so vicious back, except from some texts maybe read of
she is as full of shit as a Christmas goose.
Aside from things like that. Oh, wait. My dot, guys, I have it now. So whenever I need to be thinking, I'm like, we can have that played as often as I want. But yeah, I mean, it's, granted, they're reading some things, but they almost seem justified once you hear these witnesses talking sometimes. But yeah, anyway, Isaac was a fantastic witness. I feel like that was Were you surprised that Elaine let him go so long? Like, was that just a lack of experience? Because I'm hearing she hasn't done any right? She hasn't done any actual, what's the word? Witnesses on trial. She hasn't actually done it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what her actual trial experience is. I can tell you that was an absolutely amateurish moment. I mean, that is something that you learn very early on as a trial litigator. There are just certain questions you don't ask. You don't ask the questions you don't know the answer to, and you never ask the hostile witness to explain themselves. So she gave him an absolute opening to explain why he was angry. That was 100% a rookie mistake. And basically, the irony about it is that it's not even really clear what Elaine thought she was doing on cross-examination here. Like, what is the benefit of asking this question? Cross-examination is not supposed to be the opportunity to invite people to provide information. You are there to tell them what they have already said, what the evidence already is. You're confronting them. But folks who don't have a lot of experience with that, they often have this bad habit of trying to take it too far and asking the question that really doesn't need to be asked, the period at the end of the sentence. The jury is perfectly capable of looking at what evidence suggests that, for example, Isaac Baruch might be somewhat partial to Johnny Depp. That's really the only point to make in cross-examining him. So to try to underscore that with these questions about, so you must be angry, it doesn't, you didn't need to do that. The jury can reach that conclusion anyway. So it just ended up being such a massive own goal that I'm very curious to see if she's able to improve over the course of this trial, because man, that she just got caught slipping hard on that one.
Now, like at the end of a trial day like that, like, we're speculating completely, but there's got to be some anger of just like, what, how do we, with that? Like, who do you think, is Amber like noticing that, you think too, of like, why'd you let him say that? What do you think the mood is on a day after with the lawyers in Amber's court, let's say after Isaac's day?
Oh, it's very discouraging to be in that position, because in a trial like this, nothing is ever going to go perfectly. There's so many opportunities to second guess the choices that you've made. And so it takes so much confidence and just being assured in your strategy to be able to hold the course in spite of these types of mishaps. And so to just create such an enormous unforced error like that is the kind of thing that will haunt you forever when this trial is over. If this doesn't go Amber Heard's way, I'm fully confident she is going to identify that moment as one of the key turning points.
Well, I just don't believe Amber's not scouring social media or having someone do it for her. That's impossible for her to do that. But I guess she's allowed to. She's not allowed to post. It's the witnesses that aren't. Well, I guess Amber is a witness. Is she allowed to be on social media throughout this trial? Like privately?
That's a really good question. I would assume that as witnesses, they're subject to the same exclusion order as any witness in the trial. They're just a little bit different because they're a party. They get to sit in the courtroom. Normally it's the type of thing that you kind of understand, like you said, that this is happening anyway. And they're going back at the end of the day and strategizing with their lawyers about what happened and trying to figure out how to counter that, what their next steps are going to be. So a lot of that is built into the process already. It's typically perfectly appropriate to bring that up on cross-examination. I doubt they're going to do that in this case unless they have something to substantiate social media activity or, coordination behind the scenes with somebody like Eve Barlow, because they can't count on her for an honest answer. But ultimately, I think everybody just kind of understands that, the parties are biased and they're going to bring that to their own testimony.
Well, because I know we don't have much more time. We about you said a half hour. I got about 10 minutes. So let me burn through some of these other guests really quick, which is Brandon Patterson was so dry. I know a lot of people were falling asleep during this portion of the trial. Basically, he just spent 2 hours providing the CCTV footage from different times to just sit there and verify. And from what I've gathered, I talked to Legal Bytes, some other lawyers that were streaming, that it was just, this wasn't necessary because this is how they agreed to do it. But my God, this was such an unfortunate thing for Johnny's team to have wasted. Do you think there was a way around this? I mean, did this have to happen? Thoughts on Brandon's long verification of all the footage?
Yeah, well, basically, if Amber's team is not going to stipulate to the authenticity of the Eastern Columbia building videos, then this was necessary foundation. It's unfortunate, it's boring, but this is honestly fairly common in trials that have a lot of technical evidence. I could tell you horror stories about foundations that have to be laid over chains of evidence of how, a particular vial gets from a police officer to the evidence room to the laboratory back to the police department. It's excruciating, but it is an unfortunately necessary part of the process.
Yeah, and then the big takeaway was that there was this fake punch that seems very damning, and he acknowledged he saw it, but that it's unclear who deleted it, which is a huge mess up, and some people speculating that Amber's team must have figured out a way to remove that from there, or someone did. But anyway, his testimony about it and Isaac's and others, do you think that'll still be effective to the jury, or because we don't have it, it doesn't exist?
I mean, we hope so. It ultimately is just going to come down to how much weight does the jury give these individual witnesses and their credibility anyway. If Isaac has otherwise come off as a credible witness, then they're that much likelier to believe what he had to say about the video.
Next up was Kate James, which was so just Amber's payroll employee assistant just scorched her. I mean, and I feel like, yes, you could feel the bitterness, the anger that was there, but also I believed her. You know what I mean? It didn't feel like she was there doing it as a vendetta. It just felt like, oh God, why are you bringing this part of my life up again? That was such a traumatic nightmare for me. Why are we doing this? I don't even want to be here, but yes, I will answer. That's the vibe I got. And it just made her more credible in my eyes. She really wrecked, I feel like, the defense in a lot of ways because she was there through so much. She admitted Amber never wore makeup. She admitted Amber was walking around without clothes and never saw bruising. They tried to get her to say, like, hey, well, you never saw it happen, right? So she's like, well, I would have saw the aftermath. I would have saw the damage, would have saw it on her. This was very compelling, and I felt very damning for Amber and her side. How did you react when you saw Kate James's testimony?
I loved Kate James. She was a fantastic witness. She did a great job handling Ben Rottenborn, who, by the way, is by far the superior attorney on Amber Heard's team. She has a clear understanding of the approach a witness needs to have on cross-examination. Sometimes when you're preparing a witness for cross, you let them know that there are generally 4 acceptable answers to any question you get on cross-examination. cross-examination. Yes, no, I don't know, I don't remember. There's some fuzzy room about, I don't understand, can you clarify as well? Kate James understood that script. She understood that this was not her friend and that she was there to give him as little as possible. She performed spectacularly. I think the other important thing that came out from Kate James is the testimony about Amber spitting in her face. Mm-hmm. The reason why this is so important is because it's very easy, I think, up to this point to look at this dispute and look at these characterizations of Amber as just being kind of typical Hollywood diva behavior. Like, okay, yeah, she's high maintenance, she's demanding, she's a bit of a snob to the staff. But spitting in someone's face is taking that to just an absolute next level. Like, this is so unquestionably abusive behavior that is going to, I think, open the jury's eyes that we are not just talking about somebody who has a little bit of a bad temper or somebody who could be a little bit politer to the staff that she works with. That was a very powerful way of driving home that we're not just talking about ordinary diva behavior here.
Yeah, no, well said. So yeah, we've gone through that. You can watch the testimony of her. I did the highlights of there. I thought her and Isaac were definitely the standouts so far. And then we had Dr. Laurel Anderson, and I do want to talk about this because from a legal standpoint, I'm just frustrated. I feel like she was sharing a lot of hearsay. First of all, I'm confused how this is even allowed. Do you know how this, like, how is she allowed to share such private details? Did they have to approve it? Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, well, so the general rule is that hearsay is excluded as evidence, but there are tons of exceptions to the hearsay rule. And so among those exceptions are admissions of a party opponent. And so basically, when the out-of-court statements are statements that one of the parties made that may be against their personal interests, that's an exception to the hearsay rule. They're allowed to bring that in. So that clearly justified all of these statements that Amber made about initiating the physical violence, about, you know, the reasons why she did that, the issue of having the strategic advantage if she alleged domestic violence when she filed for divorce. These are all things that are powerfully against Amber Heard's interests, so they're allowed to come in that situation.
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest takeaway, and I saw a lot of outlets just jumped on it, was this: they were mutually abusive, right? And then she acknowledged that because, and it's right in the bottom right there, important, we learned Amber only mentioned that JD was physical when JD was not present during sessions. I know a lot of people in Team Depp have been able to prove that her later statements actually said the evening, where she told Dr. Lawrence it was the morning. There's a lot of conflicting reports in what Amber has been telling people, and again, gets down to the credibility. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, why would they even show this portion during Johnny's side? But what I've gathered is they want to get ahead of this, right? Because they know this is going to be played later, and if they get ahead of it now, they can sort of set the tone and the narrative for some of the worst admissions in a way to then, I imagine they're preparing to sort of knock some of those things down. What is your takeaway on why this was presented on Johnny's time?
Yeah. That's very much how I see it. Laurel Anderson is one of these witnesses that was probably going to be called by both of them because she has some things to say that are beneficial to both sides. And so, yes, they have already set the stage extremely well for the witnesses that we know are coming that had much more day-to-day involvement with Amber and Johnny, that observed their relationship a little bit more closely. So I thought Ben did a fantastic job of defusing the whole mutual abuse opinion that she reached by, number one, obviously pointing out that this was coming from Amber. This was coming from Amber only when Johnny was not present and in a position to defend himself against those accusations. But also set the stage for the fact that this doctor didn't even talk to Amber's regular therapist and the other folks that were involved in the treatment. We've seen that Connell Cowan is on Johnny Depp's witness list. He was Amber Heard's regular therapist. So we can assume that he's going to have quite a bit to say say that is not going to be favorable to her. And to the extent that he has just much closer knowledge of the details, then I think they have already set the stage for Laurel Anderson to be shown as having pretty limited insight into the reality.
Now, how are these therapists allowed? I mean, these therapists really can just come in and they don't need Amber and Johnny's approval to reveal this private information?
No, they're under subpoena. They are required to testify what they're asked.
Even as a doctor, there's no protecting doctor-patient privileges here.
Well, so there can be. If a doctor gets a subpoena, they can resist that subpoena on the grounds of privilege. And then it's just going to come down to a question of how central is their information to the issues in dispute in the trial. And what we've seen in this case is that Amber Heard is apparently raising some fairly severe and specific allegations of psychological injury that she is attributing to Johnny Depp and his alleged defamation of her. So that is just a classic opening the door to inquiry into those types of issues.
Interesting. All right, and then real quick, Gina obviously got struck in that we assume was through Eve's social media presence in the courtroom. Something was said that triggered I heard she liked posts at some point, and that they were checking during the trial, and then were able to tell the courtroom right away. She was then taken away. The last guest, which she didn't get to do the infographic yet, but was Kipper, the Dr. Kipper. I got a similar vibe, but unlike the marriage counselor, I got the feeling Kipper did not want to reveal any details, was not going to remember any details. I've gotten tips that he represents a lot of famous people still to this day, so it makes sense why he doesn't want to be out there publicly spreading secrets of the clientele. Did you get that vibe from him as well, and anything surprised you in his testimony?
Well, Dr. Kipper does seem a little bit more tight-lipped than Dr. Anderson did, for sure. But I think it's also important to remember, too, that he's being questioned by Amber's lawyers at this point. He hasn't been questioned by Johnny's lawyers yet. So we don't know if they'll have a different approach when it comes time for Johnny's side to be asking the questions. Right.
The video we saw yesterday was Amber's people. We still have more to watch, which I am assuming is then Johnny's side asking the questions for Monday's return, correct?
Yeah, and so the important thing to remember with the depositions is that it goes kind of the opposite way of the normal trial testimony does, because what happens is Johnny Depp has identified Dr. Kipper as a material witness in his discovery. And so based on that, Amber Heard has noticed Dr. Kipper for deposition. That means it's her deposition, even though he's not, maybe her witness. So that's why she's doing the questioning first, and then once she's done, Johnny gets his opportunity to redirect and go into things that he wants to come out. But so it's a little of a reversal of what we normally see at the trial, where the person calling the witness goes first and then gets the cross-examination.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Well, that was it. Any final words or expectations of you think? Do we know who's next week? Is there a schedule that if you know it, send it me. But we know we can assume some of the people that are coming based on the list and stuff. But any predictions or final thoughts as we move into week 2?
I just think, like I said, it was a solid first week for Johnny Depp. They appear to be on course. They appear to be on schedule. These are all positive things in his favor. It does look to me like Amber Heard is blowing a lot of time on unnecessary cross-examination. Judge Escarati did make a comment at one point that the clerk is keeping track of the time that each of the parties are using during these witnesses. So it does appear that she's going to go to great lengths to make sure that they each get a fair amount of time to decide for themselves how they want to use that. So if Amber ends up blowing a lot of time on this, frankly, kind of pointless cross-examination, that's just going to come back to bite her on the back end. Right,
because at a certain point, that means they can't even object or anything else later. Like, how will that time affect their actual trial? Because the second half becomes her time, but how does that actually work?
Well, so the way it works is that obviously Johnny's going first with his case in chief. Because we have a claim and a counterclaim in this case. When Amber Heard goes, she's both going to be putting on her defense to Johnny's case, but she's also going to be putting on her case in chief for her own case. So once she's done, then it's going to go back to Johnny Depp to rebut her case in chief on her counterclaims. And that's really important here because we already know so much of Johnny Depp's case is a rebuttal case.
Yep.
It's based on being able to impeach her for the claims that she is going to make on the stand, that there is just an abundant amount of evidence that can be disproven. And so then the last piece is the opportunity for Amber Heard to come in and rebut that, to basically try to show, look, no, I was telling the truth, and here's all of the reasons why. So that's the time that's really going to get cut into if she is choosing to front load her case and use up all of her time at this early stage. It's going to cost her at that moment when she has the opportunity to address the lies.
Yeah, it really is. The football analogy, I guess, holds. It's like when you challenge the play and you lose your timeout. And then the game's at that final yard and you can't take the time out, you're out. So that's very revealing and very telling. I'm glad. Thank you for explaining that and everything else. Make sure you guys follow Andrea over on Twitter at A. Burkhart Law, at her on Twitter. Go send her some love. And thank you so much for your commentary through this. And please come back. Hope to have you, baby, on one of our lives after. Let's stay tuned. I appreciate you. Anything else you want to say?
Nope. Hang tight and hold the course.
Thank you so much, Andrea, and thank you guys. If you're watching live, I'm trimming this portion. Don't go anywhere. I'm just putting the end card there. Andrea, thanks again. Enjoy your day. The rest of you, if you're watching live, don't go anywhere. I got more to fill you in on, so please stay tuned in 3, 2, 1.